So thanks for joining us today for this edition of the Next Gen Leaders Lunch-Break, a monthly leadership conversation with top-tier leaders. Now, our guest today is Andrea Leik. Andrea is the Children's Ministry Director at Willamette Christian Center, which is a multi-site church in Eugene, Oregon. She also serves on our Oregon Ministry Network advisory team for the Next Gen, and she leads a very active kids leaders network in the Eugene Springfield area. So thanks for joining us today, Andrea, and making this investment in all of our leaders who will hear it today live and those who are listening to it recorded. Now, I understand that you grew up in Northern California and you did most of your ministry in Northern California and Southern California. So the question I have for you is, how did a girl from California, a California girl, end up in Oregon? So tell us a little bit about your ministry journey and how that happened.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I felt called to ministry at 14 and then served in volunteer roles in youth and kids all through my teen and 20s. And then when my husband and I got married, we moved to Southern California, a little town called Tehachapi. You only know it if you broke down there on your way to Vegas, generally. It's a little mountain town. And I started being the children's pastor there in 2009.
Wow.
So and served there for 4 years. And then we felt called to Oregon. My husband's family lives here and he got a job with the city of Eugene. So we moved here in December of 2013. And when we got here, I just assumed I would jump right back into kids ministry, and God didn't have that in his plan right away. So it took a couple of years of just being a mom and getting adjusted to Oregon. And then I started with Willamette Christian Center in Eugene 4 years ago on the 15th of November. So it's been a great journey.
And you guys are a multi-site church. You have 2 different locations. So how does that look for you in your current ministry?
I oversee both campuses. We have a satellite campus in Junction City. So we do kids programs out there as well, just same as what we do in Eugene, just a smaller version of it. And I get the privilege of overseeing both campuses. So, and I oversee 0 through 5th grade.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility. How many volunteers would you say that you work with to make that possible on any given weekend?
Every weekend, we probably have between both campuses about 30 volunteers.
Wow. That's a big responsibility. So I know today when we were talking about this call coming up, we wanted to have a conversation about connecting with other leaders. I know this is something you really believe in, but you don't only believe in it, you practice it. You actually do it. It's one thing to say, yeah, that's important, but you actually practice it on a regular basis and you see the value of connecting. I know I'm the same way. When I was in San Diego doing Next Gen Ministries, I had the privilege of starting a network much like you're doing, and it grew from 3 people to about 35 people that we would meet on a monthly basis, and throughout the year we do some ministry. And then when I moved to Oregon, I just automatically jumped into the existing network that was there in Central Oregon and was a part of that. So I'm a big believer in the importance of connecting with other leaders. So why would you say connecting with other leaders is important to you?
Well, when you're with people that are like-minded, it just helps you just understand each other. You're able to understand the highs and the lows, just being able to connect at a different level than somebody who isn't in that same ministry, in the same season that you're in. We can get tunnel vision when we're in ministry, put our heads down and just try to get our tasks done, and it keeps us from reaching out to other people, and that leads to despondency, and sometimes that also leads to the woe is me. When you don't connect with other people and share your highs and your lows, it can lead to I'm not doing this right, and just kind of keep your head down and not look out to what's outside of what's going on around you. I love what I get to do and connecting with other leaders. And just one of our Kidmin get-togethers is what we call our get-togethers. Lauren from Florence happened to just share of a program that she uses for ProPresenter. And I was like, oh, I need that. And so I was able to take what she shared, and it has changed our kids' church, because now I can have our student leaders do the tech, do the ProPresenter program, and not have the issues that we were having huge fails. So that simple little help from her changed a lot for us. So just little things like that, where just conversations make all the difference.
So when you're saying it's like sharing best practices is one of the things that you do, and
Sure.
Lauren shared something, a best practice, something that helped her, and you were able to learn from it and pull it into your own ministry.
Definitely.
So now I'm sure there's a lot of people on here going, you got to tell me about this tool. So take a second to tell us about this tool that Lauren revealed to you, and how all of us would want to use it.
It's called, I don't even know what it's called, to be honest. Lauren, what
Lauren
is
can unmute herself and maybe help you out here.
It's called Clip Grab.
Clip Grab.
Yeah.
Okay, and how does it work? And why would I as a youth or kids pastor want to use it?
So Clip Grab is an app that we use on YouTube, or it takes YouTube videos and allows you to input them in ProPresenter without having to switch back and forth on a smart TV or whatever. So it basically takes that video. The reason that I started using it is I was using the YouTube app on our smart TV and switching, but there's ads that come up. And one of the ads that showed up in between our worship videos was a Trojan ad, and it was not okay. So I was like, well, I got to find something else.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if I'm a kids pastor and I'm having children's church and I'm using YouTube videos for worship, I could put them all in ProPresenter and just stream them right there.
Yeah, and it works with like the kids convention videos that you put out. I put that in there as well, and it streamlines our program.
Wow, what a great tool! I had never heard of it. I don't know if any others have heard of it, but check it out, Clip Grab, and I'm guessing you just Google Clip Grab and you'll find it.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is make sure you're not publishing stuff. If you're using it in-house, that's great, but I wouldn't use it and then publish that material, because we don't want to get into copyright issues with that.
Good advice. You always want to be careful of copyright. So back to our conversation, Andrea, that's awesome. And so what we're talking about really is the power of collaboration.
For sure.
We're talking about collaborating with one another. And I'm a big believer that, I mean, I come into a room and many times people just assume I'm the next gen director, I'm the expert. And I like to tell people, we're all experts. We're all experts at something. We can all learn from one another. I just learned something today from Pastor Lauren and you that I didn't know about. And so we all are experts at things. And when we connect with other leaders, it allows us to collaborate, and we become kind of that cheesy phrase, but it's true. We're better together.
For sure.
And truly we are better together when we do that. So that I would agree 100%. Now, I think the reality is most of the people on this call, most of the people who will listen to this call later would agree and believe that it's important to connect with other leaders. They see value in it. They would agree that they should be doing that, but many times they're not doing that. So let me ask this: what do you think keeps people from connecting? From your own experience, maybe why you didn't connect so much in the past, or why people fail to connect even now?
I think there's several things. Comparison is one of them. I think it's natural for us to compare ourselves to each other, and comparison kills. We can get into they're doing it better than I am, or they have more people than I do, more kids than I do, more leaders than I do. And that's where Satan wants us. Like, he wants us to live in that, comparing ourselves to others. And another thing is time. We are all busy. There's a lot of people who work or bivocational. And so busyness is huge of why we don't connect. And I think too, when we connect with something, it has to have value and a purpose. And if it doesn't, then we don't want to take the time to connect, you know. And seasons of life are huge. When I started in kids ministry in Tehachapi, I had toddlers. I had a 5-month-old and a 18-month-old. And that was rough. Thank goodness I was only part-time, but and then I became the area advisory person, kind of like I am here. And I didn't reach out at all. The season I was in was rough, and that's what kept me from reaching out. I barely could put curriculum together for Sunday morning and feed my family. That was all I had time for, just because of the season I was in. And another thing is demographics. Here, I mean, I'm fortunate that Eugene and Springfield is close, so we, you know, have a lot of people close to us. But demographics, especially in Oregon, is hard because we're very, very spread out.
Yes.
So I think those are the main reasons that I felt like it, that I kept in the past from connecting.
Yeah. And you said the second one you said was value and purpose. Boy, I know for me, that was a big one. We all have only 168 hours in the week. And if we're going to give an hour or two to a meeting with other leaders, I know for me in the past, that question came up all the time. Was there value in it? Was there purpose in it? Was this a good use of my time? And so I would agree. I think you as a leader, if you're the one leading that network or that group of leaders, that you have to be thinking through that and saying, hey, what can I add value to the people when they come? If they're going to give me an hour and a half of their time, what can I add that's going to be value to them? And what's the purpose behind it? I think that's great. And I would agree also, the demographic piece, especially moving from San Diego, which was metro, it was much easier to connect. And then moving to Central Oregon, where I lived in Bend, and demographically, people were much more spread out, and it was much more of a challenge to get people together. So let me ask you this: so does connecting with other leaders always have to mean that you're physically in the same spot, though?
Not at all. I mean, obviously, there's a benefit to that, but thankfully, we live in a day and age where social media is at our fingertips. So just a quick text message to somebody to encourage them, to ask them if you can pray for them, is huge. A quick phone call just will change somebody's day. And sometimes I feel like, for me too, I get so caught up in my own everyday things that I don't think about what somebody else is going through. And just putting that focus on somebody else just changes my focus and changes theirs as well.
No doubt about that. And I mean, I think we're a great example that you don't have to be in the same location is what we're doing right now. I mean, we're using technology to connect with other leaders all across the state of Oregon and maybe across the nation, because we don't know who's listening, who will listen from other locations. And we're using technology. And that's something that I didn't have when I lived in San Diego. It was just coming out when I lived in Central Oregon. And so there is a huge advantage to be able to use technology, if it be like this, if it's FaceTiming or Zoom or whatever, where you can still connect with other people and encourage. And I agree, a text or whatever can help with that. I know you currently lead a really active kid men network group that meets on a regular basis in the Eugene, Springfield area. What does that look like? Could you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? Because not all of us get to participate in it.
Sure. We meet once a month generally. It started out as just, when I started on the advisory team, Brian challenged us to connect with people in our area. And so I just took a list and sent out an email and wasn't sure what it was going to look like. And it began with Steve, Katie, and I meeting at Flashback in Springfield for dessert. And it just started from there and slowly has grown. We roughly run about 8 to 10 leaders represented, probably about 8 churches normally represented. And we just get together and hang out. And at first we were meeting about every 6 weeks. And now we really meet faithfully once a month. And we choose a different place each time, generally on what their favorite food is, or what sounds good. And then we just get together and we hang out. We talk about what's going on in our day-to-day lives and our ministries, and just fellowship together. I'll bring up whatever announcements are going on in the Oregon Ministry Network. But other than that, we really just hang out together, and just be with each other. We also, from that, one of the things I'll never forget, Katie and I and Stephen were standing outside of Flashback. We'd already been talking for like an hour and a half and was wanting to get home, but we were still just talking. And Stephen made a comment that we need to get our kids together, especially for smaller churches. It'd be nice if we could get our students together. And I was thinking, oh, how am I going to do that? I wasn't sure how that would work. And, it really it is morphed into something amazing. We do 4 kid events a year now. So every quarter we do an event, and we have generally 6 to 8 churches that participate from our area. And it's just really neat that not only as us leaders have connected, our kids are connecting. They're recognizing each other at events. I repeatedly heard that at kids convention. Hey, they were at camp, or
Yes.
and it's just neat for them. It's neat for us. It not only supports us as leaders, but it really supports them as kids, because they're building friendships, and so it has gone bigger than I ever could have thought it would. And it really, honestly, doesn't take up that much of my time. Sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time, but I email out once a month, and I Facebook every couple of weeks of what's happening. And that's that's our model right there. We're doing a leaders Christmas party in December, which is our second one. We're doing a snow trip in January, which is our second one. A cool little thing at the Coast Forum, Christine, I wasn't going to say her name. Another children's pastor heard us talking about our snow trip, and she offered her parents' cabin for us for our snow trip. So it's just things like that, just collaborating together and just talking, and it's just been amazing.
So now your snow trip, is that for leaders or for kids?
Just for leaders. It's all of us kids pastors who regularly get together are going to go to the snow and hang out. And we did it last year, and we had a blast.
So what I'm hearing you say is you get together your network, your group, your network of kids leaders in the Eugene Springfield area.
Right.
Get together once a month as leaders, and then 4 times a year you bring all your kids along.
Right.
So tell us, what are some of the things you do with your kids?
We do Splash on a regular basis, or once a year, basically. Splash is a wave pool here in Springfield, and we rent out the building, and we just let the kids swim for a couple hours. And then one of the things that we've chosen to do is make sure our events have a BGMC focus. So we always try to have a speaker, somebody who has been affected by BGMC funds, so a missionary, and give them about 15 minutes just to share their heart about BGMC. And so that's fun. That's always been fun. So we do Splash. We do a Nerf War. We had a Nerf War in October. That was a blast. Craziness, let me tell you. There was thousands of bullets flying everywhere, but it was fun. And so those are just a few of the things that we do. We're going bowling in January, so we're renting out a bowling alley. And just going to go and let the kids bowl a couple of games, and then we're going to head to neighborhood church for pizza and a speaker. So
I love it. So how far would the furthest people come? You said you have about 8 or 10 churches that participate. Like, what's the farthest one would come about?
Lauren, I think, is the farthest, and she comes from Florence.
So about 60 miles is what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. And then Josh and Misty from Oak Ridge come. So we have several that drive a ways and make it.
So it's a little larger than Springfield, Eugene, although that's kind of the majority, but it's not exclusive. If they want to drive, their others are welcome.
For sure.
Oh, that's great. Good stuff.
At our splash, the first time we did it, we had Coos Bay. I think Coos Bay came, and so there were several others. So yeah.
Great. So that was Lauren sharing that even from Coos Bay, and you've had some from the past. So
And Myrtle Point.
outstanding. Well, this has been a really good and helpful conversation. I see people writing things down. I don't know if they're writing thank you notes or if they're writing notes for what we're talking about. We'll pretend it's what we're talking about. But anyways, hopefully I found it really helpful. I love talking about this because this is something that I believe in. I'm passionate about. I won't do ministry alone. And even like we just got on the other side of Kids Convention, it was a huge team making that possible. And there's just great joy in doing things and collaborating together. So I want to ask you 2 more questions before we finish up, and then we're gonna see if there's some Q&A, or maybe just one more question, I think, and then we'll see if there's some Q&A. But the question is this: if you could do one thing over in ministry, kids ministry, what would it be? If you had a do-over, is there something you'd do different?
I would say be more intentional with my time, not just with kids, but with leaders as well, and even with my own family. Just be more intentional in the balance between ministry and family, and just in ministry in general.
That's good. That's good. Well, Caitlin is on the call with us today, and I don't know if we've had anybody. I haven't really looked at the chat line on the chat portion, but I don't know if there's any questions. Caitlin, is there any questions that that might have been posted that we could address?
There are no questions in the chat room right now.
So none in there. Is there anyone who has a question regarding the conversation, or just something that you'd like to ask Andrea? If there is, we're going to just give you a second. You can unmute yourself.
So
wave a little bit, and then we'll know you're talking. Identify who you are so that those who are going to listen later know who it is.
So it's Lauren from Florence. One thing I wanted to add about the connecting that we saw was Andrea's preschool director ended up leaving Willamette, and they moved to Reedsport, which is not exactly right next to us, but it's close. And they ended up coming to our church because we're connected with Willamette. And so because we have this community, because we do events together, her preschool director has kids and has an elementary kid and wants to stay connected with the friends that they just left in Eugene. And so we've received a family because of these connections. And we kept a family in our church, in our group together. And so that's really cool to have those connections, and something that I would say of another reason of why we connect. I know where to send families when they move if they stay within Oregon. So that's a huge piece. The other side is there's a lie that if to go to these events or to stay connected with other people, that it takes your time. But in reality, I found that it actually saves me time and makes me look better as a kids pastor. Because now these are events that have high energy because there's more kids involved. And a lot of our events we would do individually anyway. And so rather than carrying the load myself, we really get to disperse it out on each other, and it makes it easier to carry that load. So if Andrea wanted to do Splash, now she doesn't have to figure out all the food and all the purchasing and renting and everything, but we can divvy that out together. And so that's a huge piece of, we're going to do these events for our kids in our house anyway, so why not do it together? So that's a piece that I found to be really important of why you connect. It doesn't take your time, it actually saves you time.
That's a great observation, Lauren. You are correct, because I learned that from myself when we would do ministry within the networks of the communities I lived in. Like you said, you're going to plan it anyways. So why not? And a lot of times it's just plug and play now. I'm going to put something on the calendar. So now I'm having a whole bunch of people help me rather than doing it by myself. Good point. Thanks for sharing that point. Anyone else have a question that they want to ask or a comment before we finish up our call today?
I just want to add something. Sorry.
Go ahead. Andrea, go ahead.
I am so thankful for Lauren made a good point. It really is a group effort. We plan everything together, and it really lightens the load, and it's just been a joy. Some of my closest friendships now have come out of our Kidman get-togethers, and I'm just thankful for that.
Well, there's great value in knowing who you labor amongst.
Right.
there's great value in knowing the other kids pastors and or youth pastors in your community. And I know we've had this conversation before, Andrea, and I know this is your heart too, is it doesn't even have to be limited to Assemblies of God. I know that yours is mainly within our Oregon Ministry Network, but you wouldn't exclude anyone.
Not at all.
You would welcome not other denominations or non-denominations, and I'm sure you've probably already communicated that. So, I know sometimes if we're in a smaller community, we're like, well, I don't have a lot of other AG kids pastors in my community or youth pastors. Well, that's not really the point. It's connecting with leaders. The topic wasn't connecting with Assembly of God leaders. There's value in doing that. And so both networks I was a part of, we had all kinds of denominations, and there's just such great value in that. I think Troy had a question. If you want to unmute yourself, Troy, and go ahead and ask that question.
So my question is we were talking earlier about the pop-up ads when we're doing the kids worship videos. What was the name of the new computer program? Was it Quick Grab?
Yes, Quick Grab was the name of that. Clip.
Clip Grab. Okay.
Clip. Thank you, Lauren. Clip Grab.
All right. Great.
Will allow you to do that.
Because we're starting to use that a little bit in our kids ministry. So,
matter of fact,
we're finally growing with kids now. So now we got to up our game a little bit, so to speak.
Awesome.
Before we finish, I'm going to ask Lauren if she would type that in the name of that in the chat so we can all see it. Make sure you're hearing it right, and then you can grab it that way. Anyone else? We might have time for one more question or comment if someone wants to unmute and do that at this time. All right, not seeing anyone running to the unmute button. We're going to go ahead and wrap up our conversation. And we always like to end these conversations with our guests, in this case, Andrea, praying for our leaders. So I'm going to ask you to pray for our kids pastors are on the call, our youth pastors are on the call, and the many that will listen to it after the call, after we're done here to listen to the recording.
Awesome. All right, let's pray. Lord, I just thank you so much for our time together. I thank you for each church that's represented on this call and those who will listen. God, I just thank you so much that you have called each one of us into ministry, that you've put a purpose and a plan for us in place to affect your kingdom. So Lord, I just pray for strength for each person right now. If there's somebody who is feeling like they really need a connection with somebody else outside of their church, Lord, that they would be able to find the way to make that call, to make that connection. Lord, and that I challenge those on the call today and those who are listening that they would reach out to somebody this week, God, that they would make it a point to send a text praying, telling somebody they're praying for them this week, just to encourage them. So Lord, we thank you that you have entrusted your kingdom to us, and we just ask that you would be with us as we leave this call today. In your name, amen.
Amen. Let me say this too. I think there's one perspective on the importance of connecting that maybe we did mention, and I just want to mention it because I think sometimes we think, well, I don't need to connect. I have my own connection. I'm a part of a larger church or whatever, and I have a connection with others. I don't really need it. I think the thing we have to remind ourselves is we may not need it, but others may need us. Sometimes we look at it from a selfish perspective. What do I get out of it? But sometimes there's others who they're on an island and they need us, and they don't even know where to start. So that's an important thing to look at too. I saw Wesley typed in real quick book suggestion, so I'm going to put this one up right here. This is the book suggestion that I would recommend. Is I Blew It by Brian Dollar. So great book, and there you go, Wesley. One to pick up. I'm sure you got lots you're reading at university there. Andrea, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for making the investment in our leaders today and taking time to do this.
Thanks, Brian.
Really appreciate it. Let me just share a few announcements before we sign off. First of all, again, future leaders, NextGen lunch break guests will be Travis Timmons, December 9th. NextGen pastor at Forest Grove with Crossroads Assembly there. So you're going to enjoy him. And then January 13th, Josh Wellborn, our Assembly of God National Youth Ministries Director, also a guest that will be coming out for Fusion, February 20th through the 22nd. And please consider coming and joining us. Everything you need to know about that NextGen Leaders Conference is already posted up on our website. You can go there and find it, OregonAG.org. And we are offering childcare for the first time in a long time this year. So we don't want anyone being left behind because they have little ones they can't take care of. So check that out. And then make sure to check our website, social media, or iTunes later this week for today's or past Leaders Break conversations. We have them all posted there. This is, I believe, our 9th one. Actually, it's our 11th one. So let me restate that. It's our 11th one. And so all the previous ones are already posted there. You can hear all the different conversations. We had a conversation with Josh Denhart just a couple months ago, who was our kids convention speaker. Some of the things he shared in the Leaders Breakout, he shared on that conversation. So you may go back and want to listen to that. And please share it with your teams, share with other kids pastors that you know or youth pastors that you know that might find value in it. All right? Well, make it a great week. Make it a great month. Enjoy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next month on December 9th for our next Gen Leaders Lunch Break. God bless.